Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After the news you need to know about, we run into the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. So much to talk about in today's show. I mean, it was an emotional ending to the season. Honestly, and I think I speak for all Dolphins fans, at least most of them, I think we can all be pretty satisfied with the ending of that, of how the season went, considering the circumstances. Obviously, I think it was pretty awesome. So we're going to get into all that, but we got to start with the news you need to know about, which there's a lot to talk about today. So much to talk about. I guess we'll start with one of the more lighter probably won't spend as much time on this. The Jets are going to interview, obviously, our quarterback's coach, Darrell Bevell, for their offensive coordinator job. Now, obviously, we can't offer him, I don't know, something similar to that. Clearly, every coach in the NFL wants to be a head coach. And to do that, this would be a huge step in the right direction for Darrell. But this would be a huge loss for the Dolphins. He was a big part of what we did this year. I really do believe that. All we heard all year was the praise that he got. I think his resume speaks for itself in the other places that he's coached. So I hope we don't lose him, and especially not to the Jets. That would be a huge loss because they gain a really good coach and we lose a really good coach. So that would suck. I really don't know who would take his place. And like I said, I don't really know what the Dolphins could really offer the dude to stay. But Mike, the good thing is Mike is an offensive coach. He works closely with Tua and the quarterbacks. And so the loss wouldn't be that. The thing I'm not really worried about him leaving as much as I am him going to the Jets. That's the only thing I'm really concerned about. Because he has obviously a really good resume of working with quarterbacks, and clearly the Jets need help there. So, that would suck if he went to New York. Moving on from that, I know this is a topic that everybody's wondering about, and we probably won't get clarity on this for a while. But Mike McDaniel was asked about Josh Boyer's job status. Again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. He said that he won't make any emotional decisions at this point. So clearly they're going to try to take their time to make this decision. But in the news, if you guys have been reading and keeping up with some of the coaching stuff, Vic Fangio is back in the coaching mix. That would be a huge hire. And it's funny because I was against this last year, and I completely admit that I was wrong. We had a really huge defensive turnaround last year. And just the stuff that Josh Boyer does doesn't work anymore. It's not very creative, coming to find out. He was a little bit more of a product of his environment. And unfortunately, we had to go through this season to realize that. And it needs to change. So I hope they make this decision sooner rather than later. If we could get a veteran defensive coordinator like Vic Fangio, I think that's a massive hire for the organization. Someone who's had a lot of success, plus this personnel fits his scheme. And I would really like to see Xavier, especially at this stage in his career, go away from some of this aggressive stuff, because I think he can be a really good two-way corner when it comes to zone and man. But they put way too much pressure on him. And I think he can get back to those heavy turnover ways. Tony Romo referenced it in the game against the Bills. And he is a very, very good commentator. Because usually you don't see commentators be so prepared and they know the teams that they're watching. I think Tony's definitely one of those guys that studies the teams for sure. And he said it, it's hard to get turnovers when all you do is blitz and play man coverage. Most of the time when you do get turnovers, it's either making a mistake at the quarterback position where you're confused on what coverage it was, or you're playing zone coverage, or maybe you're playing man too high and you have the defensive backs looking at the quarterback, as opposed to just praying to God you don't give up a big play when you're running zero man all the time. And especially in big big downs, and every crucial down, Josh goes to it, and I swear, and I really wish I could do this because I would play this on the podcast right now. It would be an amazing B-roll because I could make at least a 5-minute compilation on every big play the Bills had was against that zero-man amoeba blitz look that obviously, we've had great success with the last 2 years. This season has just been abysmal to watch. But literally every big play, and again, this is the third time we've played them. You would think we would do something different. And you can tell that the point of emphasis against the Jets was not to do that so much because we knew it was going to be a defensive heavy game. We don't want to give up stupid big plays off of this defensive look. That same strategy should have been applied in this game because that Jets game was the best called game he had all season, and I know it was against Joe Flacco, but some of the blitz looks that we had, and even in this game, the hit against when he fumbled the ball and we scored with Zach Sealer, that was a different look than the all-out blitz look. It was a little bit different. We confused their protection. Josh did have somebody wide open in the 5, but at least we confused them, and we ended up getting a big play out of that. But you could tell that was a point of emphasis from whoever in the coaching staff told him, like, we got to stop doing that against the Jets, and then against the Bills, it was completely reversed. And one of the other things I want to point out, and this is another detriment to Josh Boyer, is that in that same game, a lot of our big plays, and when we started playing better defense, is when we started letting our front rush, just a traditional rush. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb with the huge strip sack, that stuff was just off of them getting after the quarterback. And when we dropped more people back in coverage, obviously that gives the defensive line time to make plays. And you would think because we invested so much in this defensive line, you would think we would utilize it more and blitzing everybody. And that was supposed to be the remedy to it at the trade deadline. Bradley Chubb was supposed to be like, okay, now we can play more coverage. We don't have to rely so heavily on the blitz. It literally is just because Josh Boyer, I swear to God, doesn't know. It's almost like he doesn't know how to run other NFL defenses. It's very strange. And even in this game, like if we look at the big plays, most of them were given up by blitzing. And in this game in particular, when we played better defenses, when we dropped more people back in coverage and just rushed forward. And again, another thing that I hate that has to change, way too much single high. You need Javon Holland around the ball more. I think for sure it would get more interceptions and too high looks. And it's just way too much single high safety coverages. Like it's almost every play. You rarely see us in a too deep look. And that's a problem. And that needs to change as well. And you're not going to confuse anybody like that. There's only so many coverages you can do. And especially if you're not rotating a safety back at the snap of the ball, there's only so much of you can do in a single high look. And a lot of NFL, or not even NFL, but if you're ever been around football, a lot of the time they say, look at the safeties, and that should dictate what coverage the defense is in, or at least it would narrow it down to only a few things. And you can't do much when you only have one safety back there. And again, it puts Javon Holland in a place where he can't make plays. He has to help people not get beat. That's literally his job back there. Make sure we don't get beat over the top. Instead of using his talent and letting him look at the quarterback and make a play, he's relegated to basically as a goalie. And that's not good enough. And not to mention the fact that the front seven can't do jack squat because they're pretty much eliminated from the game when the quarterback's getting the ball out of his hands under a second for a go route, or so they have a pass protection to protect for an extra few milliseconds or a second to throw a slant for a big yard gain or a screen. Like it doesn't help the front seven either, and it definitely doesn't help the secondary, and that's the reason we didn't get so many. Like we barely got any turnovers this year. And even going back and looking at some of the Brian Flores defenses of the past, they were and one of the things I did is went back and looked at the New England game when we upset them in Gillette with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like, it was a completely different defense. It was way more multiple, different coverage looks. Even, some of the games like against the Colts in his first year as a coach, you can tell that there was a big difference. So there definitely is a substantial difference between the two. And like I said, Josh is more of a product of his environment rather than being a great coach individually, in my opinion. And his ability not to adjust, even through the bye week or anything. I mean, they got him Bradley Chubb, for God's sakes. And he still didn't change the defense. And that just has to be changed. I could spend an hour on Josh Boyer being a bad defensive coordinator. There was way too many times, especially in this game, we had that 3rd and long, and I believe it was 3rd and 13, I believe, or maybe it was 3rd and 15. And we're an all-out pressure look. And it just doesn't, it's not really, you're not playing through what your strengths as a defense. Play through your front seven. Help your secondary out. And that's what they should have done, and that's the reason we're so lowly ranked against passers in the NFL. Is just we're too predictable, and we do not help our corners out at all, ever. And with all the injuries that we've sustained, it just makes the defense look even worse than it makes his scheme look worse. And he's just not a good coach. And we need to move on, because he cost us games this year that I think we could have won if we had better coaching on that side of the football. And it just needs to change. I mean, some of the games that we can point out that should not have been bad defensive performances, like Detroit, Chicago are great examples. Even though we won those games, it was still terrible scheme and just not good at all. Detroit's another example of when we started playing more coverage, we played better defense, and so that has to change. And we got teams, and again, our third down defense was abysmal. We got teams into a lot of 3rd and longs this season, and we just were not able to capitalize on it. And that also is because of, I feel like, the predictability and just the over-aggressiveness that just shredded us this year, just killed us. And the turnover differential is another big reason why we lost those games as much as we did. Those 5 games in a row. We just weren't getting enough big plays on defense, and that's one of the bigger reasons. So this has to change. We have to get someone who's at least competent at that. We need to go out of. Mike needs to pick somebody. I don't know who, but the New England stuff it just doesn't work, and unless you're Bill Belichick, and it's just ridiculous at this point. So hopefully that gets changed. So let's move on. Dude, I almost forgot what the next news story was because of that. Okay. So. Okay. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Chris Greer and Mike basically confirmed. There's a report from Adam Schefter as well that Tua is expected to, and again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors, Tua Tagovailoa expected to remain Dolphins QB1 in 2023. How do I go about this? I actually am not mad at this at all. He missed 5 games this season. I think that's the biggest thing, and I think for sure, I'm not even joking, we definitely would have won. I think we easily would have won the New England game, because there were people open in that game that I think Tua would have seen and hit that should have won us the game. And again, and not to beat a dead horse, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but even in the wild card game, there were, even on that 4th and 6, at the last play of the game for us, at least on offense, Tyreek Hill's wide open over the middle, and it's like, first of all, how Skyler didn't pull the trigger on that, I don't know, but Tua would have, at least I would like to believe he would have hit that. The Vikings game is a great example. We dominated that first half. We should have been up like 20 points in that first half, and our offense just couldn't do anything. And I think Tua would have been, definitely better in that situation. I don't think people really understand how big of a drop off it was between those two. And I blame this on Skylar being young. He just doesn't see the field very well. I think that's his biggest flaw. There was two major plays that I think really, three really, and he even admitted to it. The pick was a play where it's like, I know a lot of people want to rag on Mike McDaniel, but he had people wide open on that play. That was just a bad read by the quarterback. Not that they would have gotten the first down, but it would not have been an interception. And then, the other two big ones, on a third down, and I believe, I can't remember exactly what quarter it was, but, Tony Romo mentioned it. They blitz, and they void a gap where Trent Sherfield is literally going to walk for the first down. He could even, who knows how many yards he would have gotten on the play, but he would have walked for the first down. And the biggest one was the 4th and 6, where he did that against the Jets too. It's a very similar play on 4th down. He had Tyreek Hill wide open on like a little curl route, and he didn't hit him. And see, so my point is that who knows how those games would have gone with Tua, and I would like to believe that we would have won those games with him at quarterback. And people forget, that's 5 games that he would have had to have a chance to win. And we definitely, I think, would have had a better seeding for sure. And so I'm totally fine with him coming back. But we have to figure out some kind of... Teddy can't come back. Teddy was awful all season. He didn't do anything well at all. But they're going to have to figure out... there are some good things with Skylar that I really like. But he's not going to get that many reps. I would much rather them go the veteran route. Someone like a Gardner Minshew, like a high-end guy. I don't think they'll do that, and I'm totally fine with them not doing that because I don't want to spend the money on that. I think there's other cap stuff we can do better. But my point is that if we do bring Tua back, I think there's we have to be okay with Skylar. And I think there's definitely something... Obviously, I think Skylar could be a really good backup. He definitely has some things to improve on, but I think we definitely need, and this is something that was an eyesore all season, we need a playmaker at the running back position. I think that's pretty obvious. Jeff Wilson is he's just not good, and I hate to say that, but it's true. There's multiple times where he had to make one guy miss in a hole, and it would have been maybe a touchdown, and he just couldn't do it. And we need a playmaker back there, especially in a system where we want to run the football. And we just don't have that guy on the roster right now. Raheem Mostert's he's good, but there's people like Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs. Maybe they look into getting someone like that. We need someone who can make plays at that position, and we just don't have that right now. And then obviously the tight end position needs to be addressed for sure. I think the offensive line is actually not as bad. It's not that big of a deal, honestly. I actually like what we have there. Maybe you go out and get a guard, an extra guard, or maybe a tackle on the other side of Teron Armstead. But it's not as dire as it was in years past, in my opinion. Shout out to Connor Williams, who had a phenomenal season. He got way better as the year went on. But I really love him at center. I think that's going to be pretty awesome getting him back. So there's stuff like there that I really like, but it's just again, I think we need one more playmaker on the offense. We just need a third guy that we can rely on to make plays other than, someone like a Jacoby Myers would be a big deal. Josh Jacobs, like I said. If we got Jacoby Myers and retain Raheem Mostert, I think that would be huge. But they need a third guy who can make plays, for sure. And I think, and I would hope, there's going to be a strong push for the offensive line. I'm not, like I said, I don't think it's like as bad as it was in years past. But with all the injuries, you would think they're like, all right, maybe we add another veteran guy here. Clearly, Austin Jackson cannot be relied upon. And another thing that I really liked, I think Liam Eichenberg, and it's unfortunate the injuries kind of derailed his season. He definitely was a lot better this year. He was significantly better, and I think Robert Hunt at guard is really nice as well. It really is that tackle position that I think maybe they'll look into. Like, all right, maybe we should shore this up. Keep Brandon Shaw as a guy who we can swing to either side. to really, in case someone got hurt, just to protect Tua's health. And we'll see if that ends up being a thing. But there's a lot of options they can go to, and I hope they look into some of the things that I said and for Tua's return, because I think those are things that he needs. And I think those are things the team needs, because I don't think the defense really needs anything, especially if Byron Jones is coming back. And maybe they don't want that contract on the books because they have obviously Kader Kohu and Nick Needham, which is completely enough, and Brandon Jones. I don't know how much cap space they can free up with that, but I wouldn't mind if they got that off the books and used it on another tackle or someone like a Jacoby Myers or Josh Jacobs. I think that could be, but those assets are better used in those departments. But I'm totally fine with Tua coming back. I think if we address those issues, I think that's fine. I think he can definitely win a playoff game, and who knows what else he can do from there. I think he definitely can win a Super Bowl as a quarterback of an NFL team if he's healthy. He just needs those things that I said to kind of help him out. And, a new defensive coordinator would definitely help the offense out, get some more turnovers in there. But, losing my breath here. But, what else did I want to say about this? People forget, and even I did, because the 5-game losing streak was so bad, you forget how well he was playing when he was healthy. I mean, the man couldn't remember the interceptions he threw. And some of the stats he put up, and even his end-of-the-game stats, his 25-8 is great. And again, if he doesn't miss those 5 games, or at least plays 3 of the 5, who knows how, many we would have won. And, it's okay to have a few bad games here or there in a season. But for the most part, he was really consistent. His ceiling when he was playing his best football was phenomenal. And so I'm not mad at bringing him back at all. We just have to add a couple, a little bit here, a little bit there. I think we'll be just fine. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. It doesn't seem like Byron Jones is coming back. They said that was a very vague answer that they gave. If you guys watched the press conference, the end of the season press conference. I don't know. And then again, the Mike Gesicki thing, like when Chris Greer said, if you guys didn't watch the press conference, that he deserves the right to test free agency, I thought was hilarious. So that's definitely not going to happen. And I honestly think, I know Schultz is out there that we could sign, but I'm not mad at that if we address that in the draft and in the later rounds. I would rather have a tackle or someone like Jacoby Myers or Josh Jacobs, to be honest with you. So we'll see what they end up doing, but it doesn't seem like Mike Gesicki will be back as a Dolphin. I don't know how many of that, how many of you guys are concerned about that. He didn't really do anything this year. He's not a very good route runner, and he can't separate on a consistent basis, and he really can't be hidden in some of our personnel groupings because of the lack of versatility that he has. So it's just not a good marriage, man, and it really isn't. So let's move on from that. We got to get into what else we're going to talk about. Okay. I basically have kind of told you guys what I think about the season. I think of the shortcomings. I think the Tua injury, the quarterback play down the stretch was not good. No matter how you shake it, Tua had the worst game of his career against the Niners. The Packers game, I'm just gonna let that one go because of the stuff that we know now. I'm not gonna really count that against him. He just was obviously dealing with a major problem that led to him missing the rest of the year. So clearly that was, the fact that the man could not remember that kind of stuff is kind of wild. And had his head coach who noticed it in film, had to report that. But so I'm not gonna hold that against him. But it was quarterback play down the stretch, the defensive inability to make plays, and third down defense was a huge issue. And I think the play calling is the biggest fault for that. I don't think they were coached well. It was not a really well coached unit. And then I think special teams are the reasons that we didn't get a higher seed this season. So yeah, that really, and I think the things to fix that is the good news is it's not talent is the reason, so they can just switch whoever, get a better coach in here to coach those boys up. Special teams, that's easily fixed. I feel like in an off season, you can do a variety of different things, so that's not a big issue. And then again, I think they need one more playmaker. I don't think they're going to be able to afford both. Like, if they could get someone, I don't know who we would beat out in the market for someone like a Josh Jacobs, or even, Jacoby Myers. I could see if he leaves New England, maybe we could, his market wouldn't be too bad. But again, I think we kind of covered all that, so we can move on to this game, and we're not going to really, this is a heartbreaker. Obviously, the Dolphins fall to the Buffalo Bills in their first playoff game since 2016, 31-34. And this is something that I was talking with my brother with. One of the things that really sucks about this game is that this was the second time, and the last time we made the playoffs, our quarterback wasn't able to play, which is very unfortunate. But really, I think when you look at this game, and this is something I said before this game, our playmakers have to make plays when they're there. And I honestly believe this team was cursed this year by some spiritual force, some mystical force, because, we would make a huge play, and again, like the Cedric Wilson punt return, or some kind of big play, and then, like, even in the Jets game, like, we would have all this momentum, and then something weird would happen, whether it was a penalty or a dumb read, like in the Packers game, like something bad would happen. Like something really bad would happen. And it happened in this game with all the drops and like the punt return, we make the big play and then we got to back up, and it's very strange. I don't know how to describe that, honestly. We would get a big sack and then Josh Boyer wants to, have no safeties back there and leave Xavier Howard run on with Stephon Diggs, and then what else, who knows, stuff like that. Like, it just was, we were cursed. It really did feel that way. And I know that's, weird to say, but it's true. And I know we have to address it, but the clock management stuff, I don't blame on Mike. I blame that on Skyler. This is not the first time, not only in this game, but other games that Skyler has played, he's had this issue, and that was not a problem with Teddy or Tua. So I don't, maybe I'm forgetting something. Maybe in the Patriots game, it was a little bit of an issue for. I think it was a little bit of an issue for Teddy. Tua had, it wasn't a problem. That was not a problem. We also had a lot of false starts in this game, but that doesn't really. And the third down thing where everybody's like freaking out about that. As it happened, I was like, that is ridiculous. The fact that we're gonna blame a head coach for trying to get a first down, or even just, not trying to lose a lot of yards in that situation, I think is ridiculous. I know it's 3rd and 19. I know you're backed up, but that was a really bad decision by Skyler. And especially since there were people open on that play. That's not Mike McDaniel's fault. That's the player has to execute the play. He did not do that. And that's really, I love how everybody's like, we can't have faith in our players. People literally like, you can't do that to your backup quarterback. And then in the same breath, they're like, you know what, Skyler didn't play that bad. He had a couple drops this game. It's like, okay, you know what I mean? And it really, so that stuff, I'm not really, I think to criticize Mike on the 4th and 1, which I think is the biggest one of the game. Now he says that he thought the first down, that they signaled first down. The thing that makes me upset is, how was a sneak not called in the huddle and you just get up, and I'm totally fine if we don't get that first down, with a pushing match, which everyone seems to get these days, and some of the spots on those plays are really bad for the offense, like really positive for the offense, and defense really kind of gets worked over on some of those. So, that I'm definitely upset about. I'm sure if he knew it was a first down, maybe things would have been different. But you got to call, that has to be called in the huddle get to the line and snap it. And you know what hurts the worst about it is, Mike draws up a beautiful play on 4th and 6, and it just wasn't executed well, unfortunately. And that play is going to bother me for a long time. And the thing that sucks is Tony Romo's like, Tyreek probably scores there. And it's like, it is what it is. It's, again, bad luck for whatever reason. It's like, why? This is something that I don't understand. And Teddy did this against New England. How are you not looking at Tyreek Hill? It's very strange. I don't really know. You would think in a big moment like that you would, and clearly that play was called for him. I don't know. It's just weird. Very proud of the way that they played in this game. Very proud. Very proud. They should have won this game. I mean, it's very strange that our big playmakers, that they didn't make plays on offense, and we still should have won this game. We got our third-string quarterback in the game. The game plan was phenomenal on offense. I could name 4 plays, the Tyreek Hill drop, all the Waddle drops, the Mike Gesicki play. And again, this comes with the curse, man. I swear to God we were cursed this season. The ball goes right through Mike Gesicki's hands. It would have been a huge play. It just goes right through his hands. I don't know, man. It's just very, and I think we had the lead at that point. We were up 24-20. We got the ball back. Christian Wilkins had that tip on 3rd down, and it just goes right through his hands. And it's just that, it just was that kind of season, man. I don't know what else to tell you guys. Like, it just felt, I don't know. And it's weird because it happens so consistently throughout the season. But yeah, the defense played phenomenal. They made a lot of big plays in this game. Xavier Howard has just been treated terribly this season. I feel so bad for him. He's just put in too many stupid positions that he shouldn't be put in. Kader Kohu, another phenomenal game. I think one of the things I want to say is I feel like people really overlook the fact that it's like, okay, they're like, oh, the Bills had a few drops of their own, which is true. They did. They weren't playing bad, though. Like, I don't think that they were playing bad at all. I think we just made plays. People keep bringing that up, but, dude, we've played them 3 times, and all 3 times, every single game was very close. So, to sit there and say that it was because the Bills were not playing well is I think, ridiculous, especially in a playoff game at home. They played good football. They really did. They should have given up more big plays than they did. I thought the refs were on their side, and I know people are going to probably, if you're a Bills fan, you're like, well, that's not true. But, they should have had that Christian Wilkins on penalty. I don't know how there wasn't 2 more penalties on the Bills. That was very weird. Clearly, he was blocking on an interception. And then the other one, obviously, Skyler was, he was walking out of bounds. And we've seen way worse called, and the guy just runs up and pops him. It's like, how was that not a flag? So, I don't know. We didn't, I felt like the Bills got more calls than we did in that game for sure. And, which happened the last game we played them too, in my opinion at least. They had that big 3rd down that ended up being in a touchdown with the Kader Kohu stuff. It's like, all right, that was like such a tacky call. And I love the one call that they finally got Trey White on. He mauls the guy, and they're like, oh, and he's freaking out. He's losing his mind. But, it is what it is. I don't think it's the refs are the reason we lost this game. But I think it's bad luck, honestly. I blame it on the luck. I really do. Another play that really made me mad, that was bad luck, is when he fumbles it, and it literally, I think it was Javon Holland or something. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Kader Kohu. The ball, bounces up right at his face and just goes right out of bounds. It is what it is, But, whether it was missed field goals this year, there was a lot of, not so great stuff. Jason Sanders definitely kicked a lot better, though, at the end of the season. Hopefully he can carry that over into next year. Maybe bring back some of that 2019 magic that he had. So, what else about this game that I want to mention? I thought it was a phenomenal plan by the offense on the offense side of football. Unfortunately, it wasn't executed well at all. Defensively, I thought the plan was awful. And honestly, I expected more. I'm not even going to lie. I said this last week. I really did think that was the best game that he called all year against the Jets. And I thought we would get some similar stuff to that this game, and we just didn't. So that was sucked. But yeah, I think we pretty much covered it all. I definitely would have shed a tear if we won that game, though. I'm not ashamed to say that. But yeah, great game plan. The team is what it is. Fell a little short, but something that I saw in this game that is like, if we can just get one, like the things that I mentioned, if we get that, if say we nail that this offseason, right? We should be able to win this division. Like, we gave all 3 times. Every time we played them, it was a nail biter. And one or two things shake here. We even had the lead in the fourth quarter in, I think, all of these games. If one thing shakes here, one thing shakes there, Skylar makes the right read on 4th and 6. We win those games. And you can't say that about a Dolphins team for a very, very many. I really do feel like we have it, and I think the front 7 has yet to be truly unlocked, and I feel like this defense is really going to be something special if we can get the right people in here. And you marry that with the offense, I think we're in for a great season. But yeah, man, I think that was really encouraging. So let's get into the fan Q&A where we will answer some fans' questions. This first question comes from SM. He says, I wanted Gardner Minshew as to his backup. Thoughts on if that would have made any difference? Yeah, that would have made a huge difference. And this is why I'm kind of weird on Skylar coming back. But I attribute some of those things to him being young. But he had really bad moments of not seeing the field well. Like, really, really bad moments. Is that something that is a bigger problem, or is it because he is a 7th round rookie? I don't know. Maybe who knows? But definitely would feel better with a veteran presence there. That's not Teddy Bridgewater, and we'll see. We'll see what they do. But I would also could see the argument of like, yeah, but do we save that money for not only down the line, but to get someone else in here who can help us win? This next question comes from Trey, 6442. He says, hey, Skaggs, great year, bro. And hate to see it come to an end. But there's a lot to look forward to going forward. My question is, do you think McDaniel needs help calling plays better that fits the player's skill set? Seems without the deep ball threat, Miami is kind of lost with the play calling. No, I disagree. I really do believe that a lot of the time and pretty much every loss this season, that the plays weren't executed at a high level. Whether it was just bad quarterback play. And I'm being serious. Like, I don't... The Tua stuff is like, what do we blame that on? The Niners game was just really bad. Like, there's no excuse for that. The Chargers game, I think, was also pretty bad. I think that was a combination of both, though. That was definitely his worst called game. But the Packers game, there are people wide open that were not hit for whatever reason, whether it was the head injury or not. And the Patriots game that we lost in Gillette Stadium, there were plays left on the field, and that can't happen in big games like that, or tight games, or against good teams, because you're not going to get those opportunities again. So I completely disagree with that take on Mike McDaniel. I completely disagree. I really do believe, and I think there's evidence for it, that the plays weren't executed right. Now, were there bad calls in certain situations? Yeah, there were. There are certain things that I wish were done differently, but the Mike completely made over this offense, and he hasn't even been here longer than a year yet. So, and it's weird that Dolphins fans are complaining about this. You just look at the numbers, for God's sakes. And there was many plays left on the field. So I completely disagree with that take, in my opinion. So that's really all I have to say about that. I know a lot of people have that take, but I don't. This next question comes from Mark. He says, should we open up the quarterback camp next year? And I'm not saying that you're wrong, Trey. I could be completely wrong. I've been wrong a few times. And, Vic Fangio is another great example of that. I wish I had the foresight to see, okay, a lot of this was Brian Flores, but clearly Josh Boyer is what he is. But this next question comes from Mark. He says, should we open the quarterback camp next year with actual competition? Also, what would you do with the coaching staff and or front office? Okay, if you're going to, I don't know. I definitely wouldn't do that. I guess you could do that. Who cares? I know that Tua would win if it was between him and Skyler easily. But also, would you do with the coaching staff and or front office? The front office, I think, is fine. I think Chris has done a great job with this roster, and hopefully he can continue to do that. So I'm totally cool with the front office. The head coach stuff, the coaching stuff, the only thing I'm changing is the defensive side of the football, the coordinator position in particular, and then special teams, I think, is something you have to look into as well. This next question comes from Alpha. He says, and I hope we keep Morstead because he did really well, really good job for us. This next question comes from Alpha. He says, are we going to go after running an RB1, or are we riding with Mostert and Wilson? I wouldn't mind Raheem coming back, but I definitely think we need a third playmaker, whether that's in the run game or the pass game. This next question comes from Alpha. He says, "What's and Jeff Wilson to answer Alpha's question? I'm completely just off of Jeff Wilson." This next question comes from Alpha. He says, "What's up with X? Even after the interception, he was running half speed. Felt like it took a huge step back this year. Thoughts?" That has more to do with the scheme, and that to me was more like he was setting up his blocks. I can show you plays where he's done that in the past, so I don't think that's an issue. I think he can't, or any corner in the NFL cannot be, maybe like once or twice or maybe 3 times in a game, you run that kind of, not like 50% or maybe it's even over that. Like, you cannot put Xavier Howard in those situations that many times. This next question comes from SM. This is a great question. He says, my favorite player from 22 is Kader Kohu. Who is yours? That is a great question. I'm totally chill. I think the Kader Kohu pick is phenomenal. I would have to say my favorite from this season would have to be probably Tyreek. I just like the energy that he brought. Yeah, I would say Reek. I would say Reek and Tua were my favorites this season. This next question, and Waddle. I think that their connection was really special and fun to watch. This next question comes from Alpha. He says, who impressed you the most this year and who disappointed you the most this year? It's another great question. Who disappointed me the most? I would say Cedric Wilson / I would just throw Josh Boyer in there. He completely just to the point of it was sad. And same thing with Cedric Wilson. And we saw flashes of what he can do, and it just, for whatever reason, it just never clicked. I don't know if it was because of the injury really was that bad, but Trent Sherfield was beating him out, for God's sake. So I would say Cedric Wilson was definitely very disappointing. And who impressed me the most this season? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to go with Mike McDaniel, because some of the stuff that he did this year, I think cannot be, it was phenomenal. And the hype with him being this offensive genius, I think, was proved to be fact this season. So I would say Mike McDaniel. And again, you guys got to remember, I was totally against this hire, and I think he completely changed my mind. This next question comes from SM. He says, in 2023, who wins in a quarterback competition between Tua and Tom Brady? Honestly, I think Tua could win that, if I'm being honest. This next question comes from Alpha. He says, are you keeping Tua Skaggs or signing a bigger, more durable quarterback while we have the pieces to win? That's the hard part, is because the roster, I feel like, especially, this is probably I wouldn't say because the roster is young, you only get 3 or 4 years of this, so that's where the tough decision lies. And that's the decision they're going to have to make. But if it was me, like I said, I would make some calls for Lamar and Aaron Rodgers. I think that's just to be sure. This next question, but that's the only situation where you could be like, okay, like the Tom Brady thing. I've seen people say, well, if you could just keep both of them, well, that wouldn't be awful either. Like if you could keep both of them, yeah, that would be amazing. But that's just not like, it's like, okay, that is what it is. But the other two obviously would be game changers, I feel like, and they could be here for like more than a year. So those are the only situations where I would even think about it in terms of replacing him. But yeah, the durability thing I think is the biggest issue for sure. And it killed us this season. Like it literally murdered the season in a lot of ways. So yeah. This next question comes from 2Rock. He says, should the Dolphins yes, they should fire Josh Boyer immediately. I think there's just too much he does not great. He's just not a very good coach. He doesn't make the players, and again, that's what you're supposed to do as a coach, is make the players that you coach better. And he doesn't make them better. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed. It was a phenomenal season. It really was. It was filled with terrible luck. Between injuries and just stupid plays happening, that just, it's like, oh my god. It is what it is. And Josh Boyer was hanging around a little bit too much. But other than that, I think there's a lot to look forward to this offseason. I'm very excited for this offseason because I think it's going to be really interesting. This is Chris Greer's most crucial season as a GM. It's not even close. Because his decision-making could really we could do something special with this roster. So he has to be very careful of the decisions that he makes. Because there is a Super Bowl in there. If he can have another great offseason, then I think he can find it. But it comes down to what he can do this offseason. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next week. This is always the weird part. Dude, it's amazing that I don't want to pat myself. Like, I don't even know how I do that. Like, how in the world am I pumping out? You talk about once a week every, week for the year. We always find something to talk about, though. But that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. And I'm very excited for the off season, and I'll see you guys in the next one.